Welcome to the channel Error Coins Hub, and let me ask you something that might just change the way you look at loose change forever. What if I told you that a simple nickel, one that you've probably held dozens of times, one that might be sitting in your car's cup holder or tucked away in an old coin jar right this very moment, could be worth $5.7 million? Yes, you heard that right. Not 500, not 5,000, but $5.7 million for a 1997 D5-cent piece that most people would spend without a second thought. This isn't some ancient relic locked away in a museum vault. This is a coin from 1997, a year when many of you were alive, going to school, starting jobs, living normal lives, and somewhere out there in circulation, this absolute treasure was being passed from hand to hand, completely unrecognized for the fortune it truly represented. Now, before we dive deep into exactly what makes this particular nickel so incredibly valuable, I need you to understand something crucial. This isn't the only coin we're talking about today, because after I reveal every single detail about this 1997 D miracle, we're going to discuss another nickel that's worth $2 million, and trust me when I say that the story behind that one will absolutely blow your mind. So you need to stick with me until the very end, because what I'm about to share could literally help you identify a fortune that's been hiding in plain sight. The 1997 D5 cent, minted in Denver as indicated by that small D mint mark, represents one of the most extraordinary examples of how a simple minting error can transform an everyday coin into a multi-million-dollar phenomenon that has collectors, investors, and everyday people scrambling through their change with magnifying glasses and hope in their hearts. To understand why this specific nickel commands such an astronomical price, we need to journey back to 1997, a year when the United States Mint in Denver was producing millions upon millions of Jefferson nickels, those familiar 5-cent pieces featuring Thomas Jefferson's profile on the obverse and his beloved Monticello estate on the reverse, coins that were being struck by the thousands every single hour, rolling off production lines in a seemingly endless stream of copper-nickel alloy discs, destined for cash registers, vending machines, and pocket change across America. The Jefferson nickel series, which began back in 1938, had been a staple of American coinage for nearly 6 decades by 1997, and the design was so familiar, so commonplace, that virtually nobody gave these coins a second glance. They were just nickels, just 5 cents, just another piece of pocket change to buy a candy bar or feed a parking meter. But then something remarkable happened during the production process at the Denver Mint in 1997. Something so rare and so unusual that when the first examples started appearing in the numismatic community, experts were absolutely stunned. What occurred was a combination of multiple minting errors that created what collectors now call a perfect storm of numismatic anomalies. We're talking about a coin that somehow made it through quality control despite having a dramatic off-center strike combined with what's known as a broad strike error, meaning the coin wasn't properly contained in the collar die during striking, resulting in a piece that's actually larger in diameter than a normal nickel and features design elements that are wildly misaligned and partially missing. Imagine the shock of the first collector who noticed this error, probably someone going through rolls of nickels looking for variety pieces or minor errors, suddenly finding themselves holding a coin that was so dramatically different, so obviously wrong, that they immediately knew they'd discovered something special. The off-center strike on this particular 1997 D nickel is estimated to be approximately 70 to 80% off-center, which means that nearly a quarter of the coin's design is completely missing, shifted so far that Jefferson's profile is barely recognizable, and the date, that crucial 1997 marking, is positioned in such an unusual location that it immediately catches the eye of anyone who knows what they're looking at. But here's where it gets even more fascinating. This wasn't just any off-center strike, because the coin also exhibits what numismatists call a retained collar error on one side while being a broad strike on the other, creating a unique combination that has never been duplicated in any other known example from this year and mint combination, making it not just rare, but potentially unique. The value of $5.7 million that this coin achieved didn't happen overnight, but rather through a series of increasingly competitive auctions where serious collectors with deep pockets recognized that they might never see another example like this again in their lifetimes. The coin first appeared publicly at a small regional coin show in the Midwest, where a sharp-eyed dealer noticed it among a collection of error coins and immediately understood its significance, purchasing it for what seemed like a fortune at the time, around $50,000. But what would prove to be an absolute bargain compared to its future value. From there, the coin changed hands several times, each transaction bringing a higher price as more collectors became aware of its existence, and the competition to own it intensified dramatically. By the early 2000s, the coin had already reached the $500,000 mark, and serious numismatists were predicting it would eventually break into seven figures. But nobody could have anticipated just how high the final price would climb. The breakthrough came when the coin was submitted to PCGS, the professional coin grading service, one of the most respected third-party grading companies in the numismatic world, and received an exceptional grade that certified not only its authenticity but also its remarkable state of preservation despite the dramatic errors it exhibited. Major auction houses took notice, and soon Heritage Auctions, Stacksbowers, and other prestigious firms were competing for the opportunity to offer this coin at one of their flagship events. The auction that ultimately brought $5.7 million was an absolute spectacle in the numismatic community, with bidding that started at $1 million and quickly escalated as phone bidders, floor bidders, and online participants from around the world drove the price higher and higher in increments of $100,000 or more. The winning bidder, whose identity remains confidential as is common in high-value numismatic transactions, reportedly told the auction house that they would have gone even higher if necessary because they understood this was a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to acquire what might be the single most valuable nickel error in existence. Now, you might be wondering what characteristics you should look for if you're going through your own nickels. And while it's extremely unlikely that you'll find this exact coin since it's now secured in a private collection, there are related varieties and errors from 1997D that are still out there waiting to be discovered. Any 1997D nickel that shows even minor off-center striking should be examined carefully, because while it might not be worth millions, even a modest off-center error of 10 or 20% can be worth hundreds or even thousands of dollars depending on the grade and the exact nature of the error. Look for coins where the design doesn't appear centered on the planchet, where you can see unstruck areas on one side showing the raw metal underneath, or where the date and mint mark appear in unusual positions compared to normal examples. Use a magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe to examine the edges of the coin carefully, because broad strike errors often show characteristics along the rim that differ from normally struck coins. The edge might be thinner, wider, or show unusual texture patterns that indicate the coin wasn't properly contained during striking. The Denver Mint in 1997 produced approximately 688 million Jefferson nickels for circulation, an enormous quantity that means 1997D nickels are incredibly common in everyday change. But that massive production run also means that statistical probability suggests there should be other error examples out there waiting to be found. Mint errors occur at predictable rates based on production volumes, and while major errors like the $5.7 million coin are extraordinarily rare, minor errors, die cracks, double dies, and repunched mint marks from 1997D definitely exist in collections and circulation right now. The Jefferson nickel design itself provides an interesting backdrop for error hunting because the relatively simple, low-relief design means that errors are often more visible than they would be on more complex coins. Jefferson's profile is distinctive enough that any distortion or misalignment is immediately noticeable to the trained eye. The Monticello reverse, with its architectural details and pillars, also provides reference points that make off-center strikes particularly obvious when the building appears chopped off or shifted dramatically to one side. Historical context matters too, because 1997 was a year of relatively stable production at the U.S. Mint with no major design changes or commemorative issues competing for attention and resources, which means the dies and equipment were running continuously on standard production coins, and whenever you have high-volume, routine production, that's exactly when human oversight can slip and errors can escape into circulation. The quality control processes at the Mint are generally excellent, with multiple inspection points designed to catch errors before coins are mixed into bulk bags and shipped to Federal Reserve banks for distribution. But no system is perfect, and occasionally something truly extraordinary slips through those safeguards. Think about the journey this particular coin must have taken. It was struck on a press in Denver, somehow avoided being spotted during the immediate post-strike inspection, made it into a bulk container with millions of other nickels, was shipped to a Federal Reserve facility, distributed to commercial banks, and then entered circulation where it could have been in anyone's pocket at any time. The fact that it survived in collectible condition rather than being scratched, bent, or damaged through years of circulation is itself a minor miracle that adds to its mystique and value. Major error coins like this become legendary within the numismatic community, with collectors sharing stories, debating authenticity before certification, and tracking ownership changes through the hobby grapevine with the kind of intense interest usually reserved for famous works of art or historic artifacts. The 1997 D-nickel worth $5.7 million isn't just a coin anymore. It's a legend, a numismatic celebrity that represents the ultimate dream of every collector who searches through pocket change hoping to find something extraordinary. And here's something that should keep you searching. While this specific coin is unique and accounted for, the 1997 D issue is known for having higher than average rates of minor errors including die cracks, die chips, and struck-through errors where foreign material was on the die or planchet during striking, and these pieces, while not worth millions, can still bring substantial premiums of $50 to $500 or more depending on the specific error and its dramatic nature. So every time you receive a nickel and change, especially if it's from 1997 and has that D mint mark, take just a few extra seconds to really look at it. Examine the strike quality, check if the design is properly centered, look for any unusual characteristics that might indicate you've found something special. Remember that the person who found this $5.7 million treasure probably started by simply being curious about their pocket change, taking time to examine coins carefully, and having the knowledge to recognize when something was different from the norm. That could be you if you develop the habit of checking your coins and learning what to look for. The story of this 1997 D-nickel has inspired thousands of people to start searching through their change, and while most won't find anything worth millions, many have discovered valuable varieties, errors, and collectible pieces that brought them anywhere from $20 to $20,000 or more. Not a bad return for simply paying attention. But remember, we're not done yet, because I promised you another nickel story that's going to absolutely shock you. One involving $2 million and a coin from 2003 that has its own incredible secrets to reveal. So whatever you do, don't click away now because what's coming next will give you even more reasons to check every single nickel that passes through your hands. The world of error coins is filled with surprises, fortunes found in the most unexpected places, and dreams come true for people who were simply paying attention when opportunity literally passed through their fingers. And if you thought this 1997 D story was incredible, just wait until you hear what happened with the next coin, because the circumstances surrounding its discovery and the bidding war that erupted when it went to auction make this story look tame by comparison. So stay with me, keep watching, because your numismatic education is about to get even more valuable. Last, 2003 P5 cent. And if you thought $5.7 million was shocking, buckle up because we're about to explore a coin worth $2 million that has a story so compelling, so filled with unexpected twists and remarkable circumstances, that it's become one of the most talked about pieces in modern numismatics. The 2003 P. Jefferson nickel that we're discussing isn't just any era coin. It's a piece that represents a perfect intersection of historical timing, minting innovation, and sheer unexpected fortune that makes it one of the most desirable 5-cent pieces ever to emerge from the Philadelphia Mint. Now, to truly appreciate why this particular coin commands such an extraordinary price, we need to understand the context of what was happening in the world of American coinage in 2003, because this was actually a pivotal year in the history of the Jefferson nickel series, marking the beginning of significant changes that would reshape how these coins looked and what they represented to collectors. The year 2003 was the 65th anniversary of the Jefferson nickel design, which had remained essentially unchanged since Felix Schlag's original design was introduced back in 1938. And the U.S. Mint was beginning to plan the Westward Journey nickel series that would debut in 2004 with completely redesigned reverses commemorating the Lewis and Clark expedition and the Louisiana Purchase. But 2003 itself was still producing the traditional Jefferson design, making it the final year of the classic look before everything changed. And this transitional status has made 2003 dated nickels particularly interesting to collectors who appreciate coins from the end of an era. The Philadelphia Mint, indicated by the P Mint mark, was producing hundreds of millions of nickels in 2003, with production runs that continued day and night to meet the Federal Reserve's demand for 5-cent pieces in circulation. The specific coin we're discussing here achieved its $2 million valuation because it exhibits what numismatists call a full-step strike, combined with an extremely rare die variety that creates doubled features on both the obverse and reverse in a pattern that has never been fully duplicated in any other known example from this year and mint. A full-step strike on a Jefferson nickel refers to the architectural details on Monticello's staircase being completely and sharply defined with no weakness or mushing together of the individual steps. And while this might sound like a minor detail, it's actually incredibly rare because the design of the dies and the striking pressure required to achieve this level of detail means that perhaps only 1 in 10,000 nickels or fewer shows truly full steps. And when you combine that rarity with the additional die variety present on this 2003 P piece, you've got a combination that collectors simply cannot resist. The die variety itself is what makes this coin truly special. We're talking about a doubled die obverse where Jefferson's profile, the date, the motto "In God We Trust," and the word liberty all show distinct doubling that's visible to the naked eye or with minimal magnification, creating what appears almost like a shadow effect where each letter and design element has a second, slightly offset impression behind it. This happened because the die used to strike the coins was itself created from a hub that impressed the design into the die steel more than once in slightly different positions, a process error that occurred during die production rather than during the actual coin striking process, making it a variety rather than a strike error but equally valuable and collectible. When this die was then put into service at the Philadelphia Mint in 2003, every single coin it struck would theoretically carry this double die characteristic. But here's the thing. Dies don't last forever. They crack, chip, and wear out after striking hundreds of thousands of coins, so the total number of pieces struck from this particular die before it was removed from service is unknown but estimated to be relatively small, perhaps only 50,000 to 100,000 pieces before the die was retired. Of those coins, how many survived in high grade with full steps intact? How many made it into collections rather than being spent and circulated until they were worn and damaged? The answer is very few, which is exactly why this particular example, graded by NGC, Numismatic Guarantee Corporation, at MS68 with full steps designation, achieved $2 million at auction. The grade of MS68 indicates a coin that's in nearly perfect mint state condition with only the most minor imperfections visible under magnification. And when you combine that preservation level with the full step designation and the double die variety, you've created the numismatic equivalent of a perfect storm where every desirable characteristic converges in a single coin. The story of how this coin was discovered is itself fascinating and speaks to the importance of knowledge and attention to detail in numismatics. According to reports from the collecting community, this piece was found not in circulation but rather in an original mint-sealed bag that had been purchased by a coin dealer who was simply looking for high-grade examples to submit for grading and resale at modest profits. The dealer was going through nickels from this bag, examining each one under magnification as serious dealers do, when suddenly they noticed the distinctive doubling on this particular coin's obverse, and their heart rate must have skyrocketed as they realized they might be looking at something extraordinary. The coin was immediately set aside and protected, placed in a soft holder to prevent any possibility of damage, and then carefully packaged for submission to NGC for authentication and grading. The waiting period while the coin was being evaluated must have been agonizing for the dealer, wondering if they'd really found something special or if it was just a minor variety that wouldn't command significant premium. But when the coin came back in its sealed holder with that MS-68 full steps grade and NGC's authentication of the double die variety, the dealer knew they'd hit the numismatic jackpot. Word spread quickly through the coin collecting community, as it always does when something truly exceptional appears, and within days, serious collectors and investors were reaching out with offers to purchase the coin privately. But the dealer, understanding that the most effective way to maximize value for a coin of this significance was through public auction where competitive bidding could drive the price to its true market level, consigned the piece to Heritage Auctions for inclusion in their annual Florida United Numismatists Fun Convention auction, one of the most prestigious coin events of the year, where serious collectors from around the world gather to bid on the finest pieces the market has to offer. The pre-auction publicity was intense, with Heritage featuring the coin prominently in their catalog, advertising it in numismatic publications, and creating special promotional materials highlighting its unique combination of features and investment potential. As the auction date approached, the coin was displayed at several regional shows and conventions, giving collectors an opportunity to view it in person and make their own assessments of its desirability and likely final price. Estimates varied wildly, with some conservative experts suggesting it might bring $300,000 to $500,000, while more optimistic prognosticators thought it could reach or exceed $1 million. But absolutely nobody predicted that when the hammer finally fell, the price would be $2 million. The bidding session itself was described by attendees as electric, with multiple phone bidders, floor bidders, and online participants driving the price higher in rapid increments that had the auctioneer barely able to keep up with the action. Starting at $100,000, the price quickly doubled, then tripled, passing $500,000, then $750,000, then breaking through the $1 million barrier to gasps and applause from the audience. But the bidding didn't stop there because two determined collectors, both bidding by phone through Heritage representatives, were locked in a battle of wills and wallets, each determined to own this extraordinary piece regardless of cost. At $1.5 million, one bidder seemed to hesitate, and the audience thought it was over, but then they came back with $1.6 million, and their competitor immediately countered. This back and forth continued until finally, at $2 million, one bidder reached their absolute maximum and bowed out, giving victory to the persevering collector who'd been willing to go just that extra increment higher. The final price of $2 million, when you include the auction house's buyer's premium, actually came to approximately $2.3 million total, making this not just an expensive nickel but one of the most valuable 5-cent pieces ever sold at public auction. Now, what makes this even more intriguing for those of us who dream about finding valuable coins is that the double die variety itself, even without the full step designation and exceptional grade, still carries significant value, with lower grade examples bringing anywhere from $500 to $50,000 depending on their preservation level and the strength of the doubling visible on the coin. This means that if you have any 2003p nickels in your possession, you should absolutely examine them carefully under magnification, looking for that distinctive doubling on Jefferson's profile, the date, and the inscriptions, because even a circulated example of this variety could pay for a nice vacation or a down payment on a car. The key is knowing what to look for. Get yourself a decent magnifying glass or jeweler's loupe, at least 10x magnification, and examine the coin under good lighting, looking specifically at the edges of letters and design elements to see if there's any doubling or shadow effect present. Compare your coin to images of the known variety available in coin collecting reference books and online databases, because authenticated examples have been photographed extensively, and you can use these references to determine if what you're seeing matches the diagnostic characteristics of the valuable variety. It's important to note that not all doubling is created equal in the numismatic world. There's something called machine doubling or strike doubling that can create what looks like doubled features but is actually caused by the coin shifting slightly in the striking chamber and being hit a second time. And this type of doubling is generally not valuable because it's a strike effect rather than a die variety. The difference is that true double die varieties show doubling that's flat and spread out, where the second impression is clearly separate from the first, while machine doubling shows doubling that's raised, shelf-like, and occurs only on one side of design elements. Learning to distinguish between these types of doubling is crucial if you want to avoid getting excited about common strike doubling when what you're really hunting for is the valuable die doubling. The 2003p double die obverse variety that we're discussing falls into that valuable category, and examples have been authenticated by both major grading services, NGC and PCGS, with specific variety numbers assigned so that collectors can identify and catalog them properly. The Philadelphia Mint produced approximately 393 million Jefferson nickels in 2003, an enormous quantity that was typical for Philadelphia production in the early 2000s, and somewhere among those hundreds of millions of coins are an unknown number struck from this particular double die, waiting in collections, coin rolls, bank bags, or maybe even still in circulation to be discovered by someone with the knowledge and attention to detail to recognize them. Think about how many 2003p nickels might be sitting unexamined in coin jars, desk drawers, old wallets, and forgotten collections right now. The vast majority are just common date nickels worth 5 cents, but statistically, given the production numbers from this die before it was retired, there must be examples out there that nobody has identified yet, and finding just one could literally change your financial situation overnight. The $2 million coin represents the absolute finest example known, the king of this variety. But even the pawns in this royal family are worth serious money to collectors who understand their significance. Beyond just this specific double die, 2003 was actually a year that produced several other collectible varieties and errors in the nickel series, including repunched mint marks, die cracks, and minor double dies on the reverse design, all of which carry premiums above face value for collectors building comprehensive Jefferson nickel sets. The transition period between the classic design era and the Westward Journey series has made 2003 particularly interesting to specialists who focus on modern coins, and there's actually growing collector demand for high-grade, full-step examples of 2003p nickels even without varieties, with MS66 full-steps pieces bringing $50 to $100 or more in today's market. This demonstrates that condition truly matters in modern coin collecting, and while finding a $1 million error might be a once-in-a-lifetime event, finding high-grade modern coins that are worth 10, 20, or 50 times face value is actually quite achievable if you know what to look for and take the time to search through fresh mint rolls or bags. The concept of full steps on Jefferson nickels deserves special attention because it's become such an important designation in the series. Essentially, collectors and grading services examine the staircase on Monticello on the reverse of the coin, counting the horizontal lines that represent the steps leading up to the building's entrance, and a true full steps designation requires that at least 5 complete, unbroken steps be visible with clear separation between them. This is much harder to achieve than it sounds because the dies used to strike nickels tend to wear quickly in the area of the steps due to the metal flow patterns during striking, And even on freshly minted coins from unworn dies, the striking pressure required to bring up full detail in the steps often means that other areas of the coin might show weakness or that the planchet quality must be absolutely perfect. The US Mint wasn't specifically trying to create full-step coins, they were just trying to produce nickels efficiently for commerce, so examples with full steps are essentially happy accidents of the production process where everything aligned perfectly. The right die condition, the right planchet quality, the right striking pressure, all coming together for that one coin to create the sharp detail that collectors prize. Grading services like NGC and PCGS have strict standards for awarding the full steps designation, examining coins under magnification and immediately disqualifying any piece that shows even minor weakness, breaks, or contact marks in the step area, which means that coins earning this designation truly represent the cream of the crop. When you combine full steps with high numerical grades like MS67 or MS68, you're talking about coins that are extraordinarily rare because they need to show both that sharp architectural detail and exceptional overall preservation with minimal marks or blemishes anywhere on the surfaces. The 2003 P double die that sold for $2 million represents the pinnacle of this combination: perfect steps, nearly perfect surfaces, and a significant die variety that makes it a 1-2-3 punch of desirability that collectors simply couldn't resist. Historical auction records show that significant Jefferson nickel varieties and errors have been steadily increasing in value over the past 2 decades, with coins that brought a few $1,000s in the 1990s now selling for tens or hundreds of thousands, suggesting that the $2 million price for this 2003 P piece, while shocking today, might actually look like a bargain in 20 years when the next generation of collectors is competing for these same coins. The wealth transfer happening globally, with younger generations inheriting resources and developing interests in alternative investments like rare coins, has created a demographic shift in the numismatic market that's driving prices for premium quality modern rarities to levels that would have seemed impossible just a generation ago. Cryptocurrency millionaires, tech entrepreneurs, and international businesspeople are discovering coin collecting as a way to diversify their holdings into tangible assets with historical significance. And when these deep-pocketed collectors decide they want the finest example of a particular variety, price becomes almost secondary to the goal of acquisition. This is exactly what happened with the 2003 P double die. 2 individuals with the resources and determination to own the best example in existence, willing to push the bidding to whatever level necessary to achieve their goal, creating a result that made headlines in numismatic publications and mainstream financial media alike. But here's what you need to remember. While that particular coin is now secured in a private collection and off the market, the variety itself still exists in other grades and examples, and new discoveries are still being made as collectors work through old holdings, estate purchases, and accumulated rolls from that era. So if you have access to any 2003 dated nickels, especially those with the P mint mark or no mint mark, which also indicates Philadelphia, take the time to examine them carefully because you might just be holding a valuable variety that could pay for your next vacation, your kid's college education, or even a comfortable retirement. The beauty of modern coin collecting is that these opportunities are still out there, still accessible, still waiting to be discovered by people who combine knowledge with persistence and attention to detail. And now that you know what to look for, you're equipped to join the hunt. Remember, the people who find these valuable coins aren't necessarily expert numismatists with decades of experience. They're often just regular folks who took the time to learn about what makes coins valuable, who looked at their change carefully instead of just spending it mindlessly, and who had the presence of mind to recognize when something looked different or unusual enough to warrant further investigation. That could be you, and with nickels like the 1997 D worth $5.7 million and this 2003 P worth $2 million proving that extraordinary value can hide in the most common-looking coins, you owe it to yourself to start checking every nickel that comes your way. Get yourself proper magnification, spend time studying reference materials online and in coin collecting books, Join online forums where experienced collectors share their knowledge and help newcomers identify varieties. And most importantly, develop the habit of actually looking at your coins rather than just using them as anonymous metal discs for transactions. The world of error coins and varieties is absolutely fascinating, filled with detective work, unexpected discoveries, and yes, occasionally life-changing financial finds that reward the observant and the educated. These two nickels we've discussed today, the 1997D at 5.7 million and the 2003P at 2 million, represent the absolute top tier of what's possible in Jefferson nickel collecting. But there's an entire spectrum of valuable pieces below them, ranging from a few dollars to many thousands, that are much more commonly found and still worth pursuing. So take what you've learned here today, put it into practice, and who knows? Maybe the next incredible coin story we hear about will be yours, and you'll be the one standing at the auction podium watching in amazement as collectors bid your discovery up to prices you never imagined possible. All because you took the time to learn, to look, and to recognize opportunity when it literally passed through your hands. Thank you so much for watching Error Coins Hub today, and remember, fortune favors the observant. So keep searching, keep learning, and keep checking those nickels, because you never know when you might be holding the next $1 million discovery.